Hello? We're having a little bit of an issue right now. I realize it's past 6:30, but we're trying to get it corrected, and if so, we will start our meeting. All right, good afternoon again. She says it is recording. You just cannot see it on the screen here. So with that, we're going to open up our commission meeting for October 27th at 6:37. And with that, we're going to ask for roll call.
Mayor Williams is absent. Vice Mayor James,
Here.
Commissioner Jones. Here. Commissioner Ambrose,
Here.
Commissioner White.
Here.
Okay, thank you. All right, at this time, we will have our invocation by Pastor Andrew Miller, and we will follow that with our Pledge of Allegiance.
Father, we thank you. All right. Father, we thank you for your grace this evening. We pray that you fill this city with your presence and that your love continues to spread all throughout the town. We pray on tonight for direction, that you order our steps in your word, and that in all our getting tonight we get an understanding that with every decision made, it is made for the betterment of the community and its citizens. We thank you, God, for being a God that will never fail us, that will never leave us or forsake us. We give you all the praise, glory, and honor that's due your name. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
Amen. We thank you for that invocation, Pastor Miller. And we will move along, and I will ask for approval of the agenda.
I move we approve the agenda as presented.
Second.
All right, it has been properly moved and second that the agenda be approved as printed. All those in favor respond with aye, please.
Aye.
All those opposed, same sign. Agenda carries 4-0. Our next item is the approval of the consent agenda.
I move that we approve the consent agenda.
Second.
Okay, it's properly moved and second that the consent agenda be approved. All those in favor respond with aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, same sign. Okay, consent agenda approved 4-0. All right, we have no special presentations. So let's move to unfinished business, item number 1, ordinance 2022-20.
Madam Chair, I'll go ahead and read this by title only. This is an ordinance of the City of High Springs, number 2022-08, an ordinance of the City of High Springs, Florida, providing for the I'm sorry, I got it wrong.
Yeah,
Let me get to it.
2022-20.
I'll pull it up, 2220. This is ordinance number 2022-20, an ordinance of the City of High Springs amending the official zoning map of the City of High Springs Land Development Code as amended relating to the rezoning of less than 10 contiguous acres of land pursuant to an application Z 22-04 by the property owner of said acreage, providing for rezoning from R3 residential to PD Plan Development 13 in accordance with a concept plan submitted as part of an application dated April 28, 2022, and revised on September 29, 2022, of certain lands within the corporate limits of the City of High Springs, Florida, repealing all ordinances in conflict, providing for severability, providing an effective date. And the appropriate motion is to pass ordinance number 2022-20 upon its reading by title only. Madam Chair, this is a quasi-judicial matter, so if you would like to go through the quasi-judicial procedure, I can do it, however you want to handle it.
Go ahead.
Go ahead. The hearing procedures are that the title of the ordinance is read into the record. We've done that. The rules of procedure will be that all witnesses that plan to testify will need to be sworn. Jenny, if you want me to swear them in, if you want to do it, however you want to. If you plan to speak on the ordinance that is read, or any of the quasi-judicial matter, any of the zoning procedures this evening, if you will stand and raise your right hand, please. Do you swear or affirm to tell the whole truth and nothing but the truth? Madam Chair, all of the witnesses have been sworn, and when you come to the podium, even though you've been sworn, if you'll give us your full name and address, that would be helpful to our clerk, because she'll take all that information down. So we've sworn the witnesses. The next item is the disclosure of any ex parte communications. So commissioners, starting with Commissioner Whites, if you'll let us know if there's any ex parte.
None.
No.
No.
No ex parte communication, and my understanding is we have no party interveners, and therefore the city staff will overview the application and present the application, or the applicant can do it either way.
Okay, so just to kind of give you a brief overview, this is obviously second reading. This is a townhome project off of Railroad Avenue. It's 5.8 acres. It consists of 44 lots. It meets the future land use requirements. And in the PD, it's a compatible use. Townhomes is listed as allowable with conditional use permit, so putting it in a PD is appropriate. The minimum lot size would be 2,000 square feet for the townhomes, which is typical for townhomes. The minimum dwelling unit size would be 1,200 square feet. In the city, it's 1,000 square feet, so it exceeds that by 200 square feet. We have a substantial increased landscaping requirements along along Railroad Avenue, in front of the buildings, in common areas, as well as along the retention pond. Increased design standards that are specific to townhome type developments that are different than the increased design standards that we've done for the single family homes. And there is a 10-foot buffer around the site. And Kim Fisher with Sycor Engineering is the developer's representative and is here to answer questions as well.
Okay. Thank you. Comments, commissioners?
If the applicant wishes to speak at this time, this would be the time to present.
Good evening, Commissioner, City Manager, Attorney. Kim Fisher for the record, 1614 White Dove Drive, Winter Springs, Florida, 32708. There's always something with me and the height on these microphones, but I don't have a presentation. I know you guys have probably a long one tonight, but I'm just here to answer any questions. And, we do appreciate the support we've gotten from Ashley. So she's been really great. And so just want to put that on public record. We thank her for working with us.
This is the time for cross-examination, and anticipating the brief nature of what's been presented, I would anticipate there's no cross-examinations. Members of the decision-making body, through the chair, may ask questions of the staff, applicant, and the participants at this time, if there's any questions anyone has at this point.
Start with the commissioners.
If I may, this is just zoning. This really has nothing to do with design and what's really going to go there. This is just amending the zoning, right?
So it's it has a little because it's a planned development, so it doesn't have anything to do with the design of the roads, water, sewer, any of that. But in the PD, we did increase some standards above what our code requires because there was the opportunity to do that. But it's just the zoning, but the zoning would allow 44 townhomes.
I'm just wondering if it would be typically a two-story dwelling, or if it might be single-story. And I'm just thinking about senior citizens in terms of compatibility for them without there being stairs. I didn't know what the general vision was.
I'll have Kim talk about what the vision is for the buildings because we haven't, at site plan, we'll have renderings of the buildings.
Okay.
But we don't have that yet.
Right.
Sure. We've been playing around with a couple of different designs. I think the first one that Ashley saw, we had a 16-foot wide product with a single-car garage. Right now, we've changed it, not because Ashley asked, just because when we're going out and doing market research, we're at a 20-foot wide product. And typically with townhomes, your bedrooms are upstairs, not downstairs. On the way over, as a matter of fact, we were just talking about a 24-foot wide product type, which would allow for a single bedroom to be downstairs, but we really honestly don't know yet how we're, like I said, we're, I don't want to say all over the place, but you know, as you do market research, you find out what, because we're trying to make them all 3-bedroom units with a garage. So some of, you know, like the other ones you have over here, there's a mix of 1-bedroom, 2-bedroom, and 3 bedrooms. The plan for this one definitely hasn't changed, that they would be all 3 bedrooms. But tomorrow that we would stay with the 1,200 square foot, but I'm not going to say that tomorrow they might change their mind and do some 2 bedrooms. So it helps, but that really doesn't help.
I'm just thinking in terms of that particular part of our population, I think there's a pretty substantial need, and if there are stairs, that's going to make it more difficult. I was just curious.
And elevators have come a long ways these days. You're starting to see elevators in townhomes because now you can get a small little elevator unit for about 30 grand put in. So we're starting to see more and more elevators in townhomes. They look weird, but they do the job.
Thank you.
First
Madam
floor,
Chair,
second
if
floor.
there's no further questions, then any of the citizenry that have questions or wish to speak to this particular matter?
Okay.
And we have,
All the commissioners happy? Okay, audience?
Yvonne Andrews, I came before you before, and again, I contacted the citizens in the area, and again, they stated that they have not been contacted about any of this development. So again, I say, these people have not been contacted as they said they had been contacted. So again, I want to know why the individuals that live in the area have not been contacted about this development. Thank you.
Christie? The discussion was concerning contacting the individuals. I mean, we have a
Yes,
list
so
of
we
where the
did
letters
do the
were
letters,
sent.
the signs, so I have copies of the sign that, you know, that we did, and I have copies of the letter that went out, but
Yeah,
as to whether they received it, I mean, it just went in the normal mail.
okay. So, I mean, we can provide the data for anybody who wants it on the addresses as well.
Can I ask you a question?
Yeah.
That would have just been somebody who was within 300 feet of the property boundary.
Right.
Yeah.
So if there was somebody 2 blocks down the road, they would not have normally been advised. So I don't know how many residences are within a 300 feet boundary.
And we can provide copies of the newspaper article as well.
All right, anyone else? Come forward.
Drew Travis, 15337 Northwest 214th Terrace. What is an R3?
R3 is a type of zoning, and it's,
How many residences on an R3?
how many is, Christie, is it 4,500 square feet for the R3?
One per acre?
There's,
Yeah.
it's not 1 per acre. Your density is going to be with your land use, not your zoning, but the smallest a parcel can go generally in the R3 is 4,500 square feet.
Yeah.
Okay, on this 5.8 acres, how many residents under R3 can happen, could be built?
46.
Well, it depends because it's, you take it based off of gross acreage, so it depends on how much space the road network takes up and other things. But we also have in the land development code that townhomes are an allowable use. And a PD allows for smaller sized lots, so one
Okay, I'm
thing,
just talking about an R3. I
right.
don't want to know what could happen in the future. I want to know what this is slated for
Okay.
as an R3.
So it would depend on the amount of the roads and other aspects of the development, and then you calculate the number of lots that would be allowed after that.
on this 5.8 acres.
Right.
Under R3, considering all the roads.
Yeah, Christy,
all-
you
how many-
calculated
how
that.
many
What was the
homes would be
number?
under R3?
Yeah,
So R3 is not the
44
density, it's the
lots.
zoning. That's how small your lots can go. But the
Yeah.
density would be based on the land use. So I'm pulling the land use
Yeah.
info. I'll let you know in just a second. I just
Yeah.
gotta pull it.
Okay.
it 44 is within that number though, because initially a larger number of lots was asked for and it wasn't compatible, so we had to go back and kick it back and they came back with a smaller lot count.
And this PD 13, how many homes or residents would be under their development?
44.
So under both of them, they're 44.
So
Under
under the
both of
R3, the R3 is 44 and the PD is 44. The 44 is allowable with the current land use.
Right.
So the zoning would be less. But the future land use comes prior to the zoning. Like you look on the future land use as the base. So if it's compatible with the future land use, then you're generally allowed to do it,
Okay, but
that
if
density.
If this is turned down, this PD 13 is not voted on tonight or not approved, it would stay as an R3.
Yes, so we have a zoning compatibility table that shows what is compatible with the land use. So if it's compatible, then you're generally allowed to do it. And so this was compatible.
I have the future land use if you'd like
Okay.
it. It is currently a land use of residential mixed use, which is a maximum of 8 dwelling units per gross acre.
Okay, thank you.
So 44 is, or 40, somewhere in there is the R3, is that correct?
That is the future land use, so.
Okay, that's the way it stands today. If I was to buy this 5.8 acres, and tomorrow I bring a development plan on the R3, I could put up 44 homes.
Yes,
But if you change it, or the commission changes it to this PD 13, how many are they, the plan that the developer has presented to you, how many homes are there now?
they're doing.
Or will be?
They're doing 44, but again, on the R3, I have to look at the site as a whole with the other things because it's based on gross acreage, so it's not that simple.
Under the current development plan that the developer is trying to have approved,
Right.
how many homes would there be under the
So it's-
PD 13? If it's approved to change it to PD 13 and the developer has presented a plan, a site plan of some kind, how many homes are going to be there?
There will be 44, and that complies with the future land uses, which we
So
go
there's
by
really
for
no change.
density. So Christy, on the R3, can you explain that as far as 4,500 per lot, but it goes based on gross? Can you explain that a
Right,
little more
so
specifically?
it
I'm
just
obviously
means-
not explaining it very well.
It just means that the reason they're asking for a zoning change is because they want to redefine how small their lot can be, because usually when you see these townhomes, they're on the smaller lots because they're attached. So if they stayed with R3, they would be larger lots. It would not be very conducive for a townhome. So that's why they recommend the smaller lots, but they're not gaining any density. They are still the same density they would be with an R3 because it's
Thank
the land use that determines it.
Thank you.
No problem.
So there's no change in the number of residencies, they're only a change in the
Right,
size of the
yeah,
residence.
so she was explaining it better than me. But I was like, I'm not explaining it well, so let her explain it.
Thank
So.
you.
All right, anyone else?
My name is Sandy Gardner, and I live at 238 Northwest 238th Street. And I guess I am part of something that's making a big impact on the state of Florida today, and that's a baby boomer. And we're all retiring, and we're all coming down. And we're all kind of rounding third base, if you want to say. And I guess I would like to know more about handicap accessibility for people with walkers, people who are trying to use their feet, stay on their feet, or remain independent. They need more accessibility to be able to do that. If they are dependent on someone to help them get up the stairs and they live alone or whatever, they need to know that there is going to be an option for them. And it's all just, I mean, every building that's ever built needs handicap access. And I really think that we need to consider that. In order for people to remain independent as much as they want to and live where they choose, that's only fair.
So all the site will all be planned so it's ADA accessible. As far as the individual buildings, it gets a little more difficult because it depends on whether they're all rental or whether they're all owner or whether there's a combination of owner and rental.
What happens if I don't care about the land around the house. I care about the person living in the house. And if you can't assure that this is not going to be accessible to somebody who really would like to live there but can't because she's in a walker or she's in a wheelchair or I don't care. I just think that that's wrong to put up so much housing without any accessibility at all. I think a certain percentage should at least offer it as an option.
So, you know, we operate within our code and we adopt the most recent building code. And so all the requirements for ADA that are in there, we follow. Just like in a single-family home subdivision, we cannot require that a certain number of those homes be ADA accessible. It's the same with townhomes. But again, if they're they start being all rental, then once they have a certain number, then there's a percentage of those that is required to all be ADA. But if they're owner occupied, we can't really require it. And so we're not at the point yet where they know what the building type is going to be. And so when we get to that point at site plan review, then more of the discussions will be held. But right now, since it's zoning, we're just on the land use.
Okay, and who decides if it's rental? I mean, is the person who buys the house, then they can turn it over and rent it?
So it's you know, it's determined by the property owner and the developer.
Oh, the developer.
Yeah.
All right, thank you.
Thank you. Okay, anyone else?
Madam Chair, if there's no other comments, the standard of law to apply is substantial and competent evidence, and at this time, you can begin deliberations of the board, and we will need a motion in order to move this along.
Okay, commissioners?
Vice Mayor?
Yes.
It's a complicated process, and there's a change here, but you know, a lot of things that we have to do, you know, are based on state statute, allows certain things and requires certain things, and so our land development codes and our zoning are all based on that, and we use the Florida Building Code because that's what all the insurance industry requires be done in the state of Florida. You can't have individual municipalities tweaking, you know, certain things for the most part. So right now, like Ashley said, we're talking about zoning. We're going to say, yes, this would be allowable, and it is based on the rules we've currently established. This plan that's come forward is following the rules so far, and there are other steps that are going to happen, you know, including now that they know they can do it, they can spend the money on the engineering to decide how they're going to create those units. They're going to have to come back to different review phases with the city to be in compliance as this moves along, and they have more details as it gets put forward. So given what we've heard so far, they're following the rules, and I don't see a reason that we wouldn't be able to approve this.
Okay, anybody else? If not, I'll
I had the
entertain a
same
motion.
questions last time when we had the first reading in terms of ADA accessibility. It would be really nice if it was possible. I know it's expensive, but, you know, given our aging population that we have here, it would be really nice if they had some that were.
Okay, I'll entertain a motion.
I make a motion, we approve ordinance 2022-20 on second reading.
A second.
Thank you. All right, it has been properly moved in second that ordinance 2022-20 be approved. Roll call. Yes.
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 Okay, motion carries 4-0. All right, we're gonna move along to item number 2, ordinance 2022-18.
Madam Chair, this is an ordinance of the City of High Springs, Florida, amending the official zoning map of the City of High Springs Land Development Code as amended, relating to the rezoning of more than 10 contiguous acres of land pursuant to an application Z 22-03 by the property owner of said lands, providing for rezoning from PD 1 Plan Development and R1 Residential to PD 12 Plan Development in accordance with the concept plan attached to this ordinance of certain lands within the corporate limits of the City of High Springs, Florida, repealing all ordinances in conflict, providing for severability, and providing an effective date. The appropriate motion is to pass ordinance 2022-18 upon its reading by title only. You have the ability to pass it, modify it, or table it to a date certain in the future, or of course deny it. Those are your options, Madam Mayor. And at this time, unless city staff wants to make a presentation, the applicant will present its application.
Okay. Yeah, just to kind of give you some overview. And initially, at the last meeting, the mayor said he wouldn't be here at this meeting. So there was a request to table it until the November meeting, so all could be here since it's such a large development. However, I understand there has been some discussion in the community about wanting the vote to go forward tonight. And so the applicant is, fine if it goes forward tonight as well. So I just want to put that out there as your choice if you want to vote for, against, or table till the November meeting. Likewise, we do, staff has a presentation from the previous meetings if you would like me to go back through it. I think y'all have all heard it multiple times as well as most people in the audience. So we can entertain that again as well. Just for a recap, Bridlewood is located at the property next to the wastewater treatment plant where Tillman is currently, and it's on 687 acres. It consists of 1,437 square foot homes that are 7,000, 8,000, and 10,000 square foot lots with a minimum home size of 1,500 square feet. There is also proposed 200 multifamily units and 250 multifamily and 200 senior living facilities units, a 25-foot buffer along the subdivisions. It would be served by city water, sewer, have curb and gutter, and 5-foot wide sidewalks on both sides. There is a significant amount of green space and parks, including multi-use fields. And a pool, and all the parks are within a 5-minute walking distance. There would be an 8-foot wide trail throughout the subdivision connecting the different areas. I can't remember if I said a 25-foot buffer around the perimeter of the subdivision, and that's currently in the current Tillman PD. Likewise, there's 300,000 square feet of commercial space that would be allowed. There's a site for a school facility and for a public safety facility as well. And Chris is here with JB Pro to answer any questions and provide additional discussion. There were some questions on some environmental concerns, and he's ready to answer those as well.
Okay, very good. Commissioners, questions, comments, discussion? Okay, anyone from the audience?
Chris, did you want to make a presentation? Okay.
So Chris isn't going to present, so now would be our time, or should we wait?
You would have time, yes. You can ask questions, you can deliberate, yes.
And I can do that after public comment also?
You can do it after.
Okay, I'll wait, thank you.
You want to wait? All right, well, anybody from the audience? Come on up.
Drew Travis, 15337 Northwest 214th Terrace. I understand that when a development comes before you, they need to have a neighborhood contact, is that correct? A letter sent, a
There-
notice?
Yes, there is notification sent within 300 feet to the property owners. There's signage put out at the site and notification in the newspaper.
Okay, I live off a road, Northwest 214th Terrace. I am 600 feet from the road. I was never notified. I never heard anybody else being notified. There's a house that's across the street, but those people are on vacation or have limited input to the rest of us. The closest house to this planned development is owned by the Tillmans. They may have sent a letter to somebody in Tillman Acres. We were never notified. Nobody in Oak Lane, Cedar Lane, or any of the roads down there were notified that this was going to happen. My question is, has the Florida Department of Transportation been notified? Have they approved this? Wait a minute, let me finish my questions. Has the Florida EPA been notified that you're going to put second-degree wastewater on the lawns, or whatever you call it? That is a recharge area for the aquifer. The water directly on the lawns goes right into our aquifer. High Springs is known for its good water. This is going to adversely affect good water.
Can I answer now?
Okay?
Okay, so at the time of plating, if this is approved at that level, then that's when we start, contacting state agencies and the like, as well as that's when we do traffic impact studies to get more data on the traffic impact, because obviously the subdivision will be done in phases, so the traffic patterns change over time. So you could approve the zoning now, but it might not be platted till 10 years from now, or it could be platted tomorrow. And so you have to take into account the cars on the road then with the incoming development. As far as your, what you said about the aquifer, Chris, you do have some information on that. Do you want to come talk about that? And I'll have Jenny pull up your PowerPoint.
It's not working.
Okay, do you want to come talk about it, Chris? Yeah. Chris can come talk about that, about answer your question. Yeah, Chris needs to come up to the podium so he can answer that.
So for the, Chris Potts, Director of Engineering. So for the question about the reuse water, that'll be permitted with the state with FDEP, not the EPA. The EPA does not have any regulation on those sort of things in the state of Florida. But again, reuse water or reclaimed water or any other term you want to use for it, the standards for that water when it comes out of the wastewater treatment plant, again, are higher than the requirements of a water treatment plant. So the water is actually fresher coming out of a reclaimed wastewater treatment plant than a potable water system. And then on top of it, the FDEP and SWANE prefers to use alternative methods for irrigation so that the water use from the city's consumptive use permit can actually extend further instead of using potable water for irrigation. So again, at that time when construction plans go forward, all state agencies will be applied for permits, including FDOT, SWANE, and DEP, as well as local agencies like the city. So hopefully that addresses the comment or question.
Madam Vice Mayor, I ask a question of Chris while he's there. You say that reclaimed water is cleaner than potable water and that the standards are tighter. Can you tell me which parameters are tested regularly for effluent discharge?
So there's actually quite a few. It's, DEP has criterias for drinking water levels. And so if you have a consumptive use permit for a potable system, you can actually have higher iron and higher calcium in your well that is actually not determined to be unsafe for consumption. That's usually why your appliances clog up. That's from calcium and iron. Or the orangish color that you see on sidewalks or shower walls. Now, from a reuse system, it goes through multiple levels of there's no calcium, there's no iron. The existing waste is filtered through different medias. And so once it leaves the plant, it's adequate to either use for recharge. That's why GRU is going through the big wetland recharge system. And so if that water was not qualified enough to recharge the aquifer, a company like GRU or other companies throughout the state wouldn't use it. Even City of Ocala finished one that was pretty significant and as a wetland recharge. So the water coming out is, again, better than potable water, and then as well as cleaner than rainwater to recharge the aquifer.
With respect to iron and calcium only, though?
No, all the different toxins that come through it, different phosphorus levels, nitrogen, I mean, everything is processed through different levels through the wastewater treatment plant.
I understand that, but I just want to make sure that we're really clear. When you said reclaimed water is cleaner than potable water, the only things that an effluent discharge are required to test every week is BOD and TSS. They're not testing those on regular potable water. I'm thinking about things like arsenic. You're talking about iron and calcium. Those are secondary drinking water standards, and they're important. But I'm focusing on the primary drinking water standards. This is the water we're drinking. And I'm thinking about things like arsenic and benzene, you know, the things that are primary drinking water standards. EDB. Look at the Alachua County Northwest landfill. It'll blow you out of the water with the EDB that's down there. Iron and calcium are not a big concern. We have it in Florida. I mean, yes, it's a concern. You know, it doesn't taste great. Calcium will make it really milky, but in terms of, you know, the actual impact to our drinking water, when you're saying that reclaimed water is cleaner than potable water, I take issue with that because I think that's factually incorrect. There is no, the reclaimed water, the discharge effluent, is nowhere near as regulated in terms of an analytical process as potable water is. The list of parameters that GRU is testing for.
By the state DEP requirements. Effluent water is actually stricter than potable water because it has to hit certain levels of BOD treatment and other things before it can be recharged. If reclaimed water was more toxic and not regulated, the state of Florida itself would not want to have wetland recharge systems where effluent is discharged into it. Straight across the board, every county, every city is pushing towards reclaimed water for those purposes.
And there's a reason.
If it was actually toxic, then the state of Florida would not allow it.
There's a reason why that's purple pipe, and there's a reason why it's always located, it's always labeled as not potable. We're comparing reclaimed water to potable water.
Yes,
And
but it's also going into wetland systems that is recharging the water. If you ask any plant operator, they will tell you that they will actually drink effluent over potable water coming out of the system. Because they're the ones operating it, they know the quality, they have to test it. The FDEP has a long list of monitoring that the water has to actually meet before it can leave the plant. When you go and drill a well, it doesn't have to meet half of those.
a private well.
Public well.
I'm very well aware of what GRU does with their water. I promise you I am. And I would not drink reclaimed water. I've done the analytical for reclaimed water many, many years ago. I wouldn't drink it.
I've designed many reclaimed water systems, worked with the state. We've taken water out of a stormwater pond, used it for irrigation. combined effluent into stormwater. There's a whole lot of regulations depending on what you do. But the reason why they designate purple pipe compared to potable pipe is because they want to make sure there's no cross-contamination between the two.
Agreed.
So that's why you have the two different color pipes. And that's just because of local agencies. They don't want that water coming back through the potable system when in your treatment plant, the chlorination process is different.
Ours is different from GRU's too. They're all very uniquely different. I understand that, I really do. But I want to make sure that there's not a confusion that reused water is the same as potable water, because it's just not. You know, I mean, how often does discharge effluent have to do Appendix 1 monitoring? How often does a potable water supply will have to do Appendix 1 monitoring? Those regulations are vastly different. And I just want to make sure that, you know, we're comparing apples to apples, because
We are comparing apples to apples.
I respectfully disagree. Thank you.
Anyone else?
I would like to question that further, because what agency would you, Catherine, would you determine, I mean, you two disagree on this. He's using state and FDEP, that type of thing. What would you consider?
DEP does do all the regulation in the state of Florida, and they're actually much more stringent than EPA. So I trust them even more than I do at the federal level. They're, you know, the federal level for benzene and drinking water is 5. In Florida, at DEP, it's 1 ppb. So I trust Florida a little bit more, because they know that our water is very precious and depth of groundwater is shallow. But the analytical requirements for discharge water from a wastewater treatment plant are much different than the analytical requirements for potable water going out to a discharge system.
So you're saying you would not trust what they say? That's what I'm trying
I'm
to
not saying that I don't
understand.
trust what his perspective.
Not
I think
him,
his
but state.
right. I mean, we're talking about iron and calcium are not the biggest concern to me in terms of potable water. They're just not. You know, when it comes to impact to our springs and our rivers, nitrogen is a much bigger deal. Nutrients are a much bigger deal. When it comes to impact in other ways, you know, you worry about stormwater runoff. You worry about, you know, runoff from cars and whatnot. Those kinds of things are not going to be picked up. Those kinds of things would not typically be in discharge water, in wastewater, for sure. But they're very different types of water, and they're regulated very differently. So,
See if we can answer that question. Can you pull up the PowerPoint? Thank you.
She got it.
So I'm glad you mentioned that, Commissioner, for stormwater. Yes, stormwater and effluent are regulated differently. You know, the state of Florida was the first state in the country to actually have regulations for stormwater treatment. In a lot of cities, when you have unmanaged urban development and stormwater runoff, you can actually have impacts to natural systems, aquifers, flooding, all sorts of things. But in the state of Florida, we actually have managed stormwater systems, which minimize impacts to natural systems, recharge the aquifers, maintain water levels in lakes, wetlands, streams, springs. They treat pollutants, and then they additionally reduce flooding. So in our plan, I know we identify them as blue. That's what most people have in their mind of ponds or blue. But these will actually be dry retention basins, which means a couple of things. So dry retention basins are vegetated, as well as they use the natural parameters of natural soils to take out phosphorus, nitrogen, and other pollutants that you receive from urban development. You know, they also improve aquifer recharge. and we'll go through that in a little bit. And then you have vegetative systems, which also pull out nitrogen and phosphorus from runoff from curbs, cars, oils, and those sort of things. So this is just a little schematic of a dry retention basin that's vegetated. You can see sometimes, depending on the material, you put in an under drain with a gravel bed, which actually helps infiltrate the water. And then you have the natural soil that comes through. So with the natural soils, you have permeability. Permeability depends on the type of material and the voids, which is called the porosity. So in engineering practices, we have to take into account the type of soil material that under stormwater basins and the porosity of those soils to establish treatment requirements to handle oil discharge, nitrogen, phosphorus, fertilizers, and those sort of things. And most of, up here in High Springs, the natural soil is mostly sandy. There is some pockets of silty clay, and then pockets of limestone. But just throughout Florida, there's sand, clay, silt, and then there's some organic material throughout that. Now, aquifers. So over on the left is a schematic of different aquifer levels in the state of Florida. But then there at the very bottom, you see that High Springs actually hits the Floridan aquifer. Now, residential wells in the north central Florida area are actually connected to the Floridan aquifer. And that pulls, just like the city's wells, but those are much deeper, but they still all pull from the Florida aquifer. And so stormwater basins are actually used in a matter of using the natural parameters of soil to recharge the aquifer and filter out the necessary pollutants to make sure that the water in the aquifer is clean. And over on the right, you can kind of see the parameters. Springs are basically just a pocket of limestone that connect to the aquifer that's surrounded, and then you have different areas. I know one comment last time we discussed is sinkholes and what happens in a stormwater pond when a sinkhole opens up. And really, mostly what that is it's just a pocket of limestone that is exposed when from construction activities or erosion or poor maintenance of a stormwater system. But the state has requirements for when a sinkhole opens up in a stormwater pond. We call it a sink, and we have different requirements for the contractor to come in and fix that so the stormwater basin can actually function as designed. And so I just wanted to bring that up because I know there's a question about aquifer recharge, the sandy material in High Springs, and actually the sandy material is better than clay material because the sandy material actually allow permeability and allow the water to move through the different layers to actually be treated better than a clay pocket would. In a clay pocket, the water would just sit there and really not permeable through. So yes, this area has a karst condition, but the stormwater systems have to meet Swanee's requirements for that. Alachua County has their overarching requirement for that for water quality, as well as the cities. So although the view that development is actually bad development is when stormwater systems are not managed and designed properly. So for example, if you have old downtown Gainesville or some areas here in High Springs that were built, say 20 years ago, that do not have stormwater systems, actually those are the systems that are causing harm to the environment. Now, when you come in and have redevelopment and you have to bring everything up to current code with stormwater components and that sort of thing, that actually reduces the impact that development has. So just wanted, if there's any questions about that, be happy to answer them. But I just wanted to bring that up because I know there was some discussion about that last time.
Okay, everybody? Any other questions? Everybody good? All right. Anything else from the audience? Okay.
I walked in the door, heard the word trouble. I didn't come here to make trouble. My name's Randall Kegler. And as I spoke to you once before, I was here 40 years ago. I'm here now to retire, and I'm building a handicapped house. Came to High Springs because of what I learned 40 years ago. One thing that I feel in a democracy is 5 people don't make a decision, everybody does. And I would call for a referendum. You're going to impose upon 7,000 people your will, the developer's will, but not my will. I'd prefer to have a choice to vote. If we were talking 35 or 40 homes, no problem. What I have a problem with is not you people. I love democracy. I want to see a referendum. Tonight, there's a big to-do going on. They're raising money for child advocacy. How will this impact our children if you double the size of the population? How will this impact our roads? One of my closest friends is a DOT engineer. If you've ever heard of the Skyway Bridge, that was his job. He's given me information that Mr. Potts is not. And I feel as an educator of 31 years teaching agri-science, there's a lot of misinformation. You're absolutely right about potable water. It's the nutrient that they can't rinse out, the feces, the urine. It ends up back on your yard. Bacteria issues. And DRAs are real simple. Everything collects. My son was in 2nd grade and did a source point pollution science fair project. A 2nd grader won it, my son, proving by soil testing every DRA in Inverness, Florida, where the pollution was and how it got there and the levels that were there. And I don't care what he says about what they plan on doing, I'll believe it when I see it, because I've been down this road. I've lived in Florida half my life. I love High Springs. I would ask you guys to somehow find a way to put this to a referendum. And the next time something like this happens, I would prefer you send out a mailing. It's called a water bill. You can put a message on there. We're doing this, we're doing that. What do you think? I know people that couldn't come tonight because they paid $100 to go sit and have a dinner to help kids. I know a lot of people that would have loved to have been here. It was all the confusion again. Last time it was the hurricane. This time it's, I got all these other functions going on. And I know I'm a troublemaker. Boy, I sure love hearing that when it comes to the door. The trouble I'm making is I taught for 31 years. I know what the public needs. Democracy is the issue. I've enjoyed your conversation. You know exactly what you're looking at. We need an independent engineer, an independent scientist. We don't need to hear from someone who's being paid by the developer to school you on what is right and what is wrong. If you're gonna do this to our city, somebody texted me, said, do you still plan on building your house? Hell yes. I don't plan on leaving, and I'm building down on 214. I'm building on 5 acres because I love this place. I came back here. My family's not anywhere near here, but they understand why I moved here. Small town. But let's not let the small town politics ruin High Springs. I drove down Newberry. Oh my God, what a nightmare. The houses are 5 to 10 feet apart. I hate to say it, but if I farted, my neighbor would probably be complaining. I moved away from all that. Spent 2 years in a condo on Tampa Bay, and the day 2 years were up, so I didn't pay capital gains, I sold and got the hell out of there. I would ask you, please, don't push this forward. Have them come back, less housing, less footprint, less damage. We're gonna have development, but not this big. This is insane. Thank you.
I second that. I'm sorry, but the people need to be able to say more. And we're not being allowed, we're not even being asked.
I would just like to say that this has been going on for 1.5 to 2 years now, and there have been several meetings that have been open to the public at the city commission level, as well as other workshop meetings held at the Civic Center. Likewise, you know, there's state statute defines how to deal with property rights and how to deal with planning and zoning items, and the
You have to
Excuse
come
me.
to the podium and you have one opportunity to speak. And so that's just the way we run this with the procedure.
So, so you cannot do a referendum on planning and zoning items. And there has been adequate public input in more meetings than I can actually count. I'm trying to see if there were any other issues that were brought up. If there's any other thing, I'm happy to answer those.
Madam Vice Mayor, may I ask a question? With respect to the public outreach, I understand that we've done all we have to do, you know, to make sure that we're reaching to the people that we need to reach, 300 feet. I didn't know about the public input meeting at the Civic Center. I would have gone for sure. I don't know when that was, but would it be an appropriate, I know that this is dragging on and that you and Christy have been working on this for a long time, but I think the scope of all of this is still fairly new to the city at large. It's just the word is just starting to get out to people who live in town. Would it be appropriate at this point to have an opportunity to have a community discussion so that the community as a whole could have input? And would the developer be agreeable to that, or?
I honestly think that it's time to either make a vote at this meeting or the next meeting, because there has been an inordinate amount of, there were 2 plan board meetings, we're in 1 city commission meeting, another one. Prior to that, there were workshops. And there has been what above and beyond solicitation for public input on this item above what we do for other planning and zoning items because of the scope of it. And at some point, you're getting into, you know, we're going up and above what is required by state statute and our code. So you're kind of getting into dangerous territory, continuing to ask for more and more and more when it's been hashed out, so in my opinion, very thoroughly.
Well, I think that the most conversation has been had with city staff. And
That's not true. There was, and there's even lists of the people that showed up at the public
Okay.
meetings.
Okay. But I mean, that first plan board meeting where it first came up, there were 100 people here. And the second one was the night before a hurricane, so I think, you know, that might have some impact.
I understand, but there have been 3 renditions of this because the public input was listened to. So you don't go through this many renditions if the people weren't heard and if the developer wasn't making concessions to provide what was asked for.
Yes.
Who is the floor?
You asked me
Okay.
first, so you go ahead.
Thank you. I appreciate the people that are here to speak, and I want to hear what you have to say. And the thing that really people need to put in a context of, there's a whole rule book, and you're balancing input from the community and the owner's rights of property and what's allowed there. Now, longtime residents with roots in this community, probably deeper than almost everyone here in the room, exceptions of some, are the ones that 20 years ago came forward and envisioned all of that property being developed. And 20 years ago started the process saying that this would be developed. It was approved. And now a new landowner is coming forward and has really he's not only following the rules, they've agreed to do way more than our rules require. Over 18 months. We're on our second city manager involved in this process. And they've gone from a ton of 40-foot lots to nothing that's 40-foot lot, nothing that's 50-foot lots, nothing that's 60-foot lots in this development. And they're playing by the rules at and agreeing to a higher standard. Now, do we know all the answers? No. We don't know about purple pipe or this or that or what's going to be engineered, and I have issues with us going down the purple pipe road. But that also requires changing the level of daily, supervision at the plant. We go up to a Class A operator, and all the testing and different things change. What's going to happen with roads? We don't know because we haven't. Why would a developer spend the money to engage state agencies, the city, and engineering if they don't even know if they can do this? There are more stages to come. They're going to have to go to plating. They're going to have to come back with a roads plan. There are all these things. But the property owner has a right under the rules to be able to develop this property. And the Tillmans started it 20 years ago. And it was envisioned as an expansion around the existing Tillman acres and what would happen, and it would be more dense. So we are going to grow. You've mentioned the baby boomers coming in, and that's causing demand. And so there's an economic opportunity, and the costs are there. I mean, interest rates, everything else, a builder has to be able to work with that. So, I'm frustrated that this is going to be a big change in the community I moved to as well. But I also realize things don't all stay the same. And people are moving to the community, and families are having kids when their kids are having grandkids. There's more need and demand. And this is something that needs to responsibly move forward. And as long as they're playing by the rules and they continue to have public hearings at each of the processes and there's public involvement, and from what I've seen, the plans have changed a whole lot from when they started. So I'm pleased we've gotten to this point. I was speaking to a county commissioner about this, and he says, you're going to have one of the nicest developments in the county. He goes, other developers aren't doing this. So the developer's agreement gives us a lot more leverage on what will happen than if we just permitted this and let it go forward. They just play it by the minimums. So yes, it's a change, but they own the property, and that's what they're looking to do. And as long as they're playing by the rules, I can't find a way to just deny them the right to use the property.
Okay.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Perez, and I'm directly affected by the Tillman Ager project. This project is town destroying. I don't think if you guys realize that. But so right now, the population of High Springs is approximately 6,500 people at an average of 290 residents per square mile. Tillman's 700 acres is approximately 1.097 square miles. So we'll call it 1 square mile. And you're trying to put 6,500 residents into that 1 square mile, as opposed to the rest of the town has 300 per square mile. On top of Tillman, you're approving the one on 142. You have the new projects on 441. Like, I'm all about money and business. I've worked this whole state building restaurants and hotels all around Florida. I understand progress needs to happen, but not like this. The workshops that you guys did were during the coronavirus, when everybody was like in quarantine and nobody was paying attention to nothing, hiding and all afraid. The 300-foot for the notification, my lot is wider than 300 foot. So if my neighbor Betty does something, my 300 foot, my next door neighbor on the other side, Kevin, doesn't get notified because it's 450 feet away? Come on, I think that should be at least a square mile, if not the whole town, especially on a project of this magnitude. 100-year-old plot that was done during the Great Depression. So you mean to tell me people were starving, nobody had work, there was no money in the country, and somebody said, ho, in the middle of Florida, High Springs, let's put this gigantic development. I find that so very hard to believe. You guys, when you do all your land development, he was talking about water and cleanliness. So the cleanest way to get water into the aquifers is natural distribution through rain, through the soil. There's a whole mycelial network that connects all around the earth. As soon as they rip up that topsoil for construction, that whole mycelial network is dead. There will be no more live bacteria in the soil. They literally destroy it all, and then they bring artificial stuff to make up for it. They talk a lot about buffers and this and that. I heard the parks are gonna be limited to use for people that live there, so it means nothing to me as a neighbor. Also, the buffers, who cares? You're still gonna bring 6,500 people average to this area. Where are they gonna put fuel? Can you imagine 300 cars at the SNS on Springs Road? Or 300 new people, just 300 in the Publix or the Winn-Dixie shopping? But we're talking about thousands, like, I just don't get it. Like in Miami, I saw a multi-billion-dollar hotel get stopped over an Indian burial circle. Here we got gopher turtles, Indian burial circles, high-power tension lines, underground spring aquifers. Like, you guys can't find something to slow this down? Like, I don't know. I worked 2 jobs, well, not 2 jobs. I paid 2 mortgages for the last 7 years, paying my house in Miami and my farm here in High Springs. When Corona hit, I sold it all and I came here to semi-retire, and I feel like this is a gigantic mistake, ladies and gentlemen, with all due respect. Y'all have a good evening.
Thank you. Okay, last time. Anybody else?
Good evening. My name is Mitch Knutson. I'm at 21851 Northwest 154th Place, and I'm right in the line of fire there, going to be directly impacted. But I would like to reiterate a couple things that Perez said, just to put this into perspective and to just drive home a point. This is not a subdivision. I wish we would stop saying that. As Perez said, 22 square miles is High Springs, 6,000 people approximately, about 2,000 households, 2,000 units. So what this development plans on doing is putting 2,000 units in 1 square mile, right at the heart of High Springs. So we're going to double the population of High Springs in 1 square mile. Is absolutely insane. The argument will be, oh, well, this is a phased development. This is going to happen over 10, 20 years. Well, and then I hear that, oh, they can do whatever they want on this land. Well, it's theirs. They have a right to do this. So is there a restriction to the number of houses that can be built per year?
Would you like me to answer that?
Absolutely, please.
There's an existing plat called Tamiami Gardens with 1,440 lots on it that is filed with the county, okay, and it was filed from a long time ago. There's also the Tillman PD. So, and the Tillman PD has different phases of it. The Tillman PD is 800 homes. Within one of the phases, or it might be an overlapping phase, you have the 1,440 lots. Now, during, say the developer says, hey, I want to go build on those during construction planning, and then when they're putting in the streets and all of that, then they typically do lose some lots, but they're not going to lose a lot of them. Again, that's already plotted at the county. Then you would also not get the full 800, but you would get some additional lots from what's remaining on the land from the existing PD. All in all, you are going to come close to that number, one way or the other, either a little above, either a little below. So you can have managed growth in a planned development or not planned.
Okay, that didn't answer my question though. How many units can they build per year? Or can they build 1,000?
Per year. They can build at whatever rate they want to build.
Exactly. They can build 1,000 units in a year, and we just have to take it.
I
find that unbelievable.
No one's going to buy 1,000 units, and it's not even feasible for them to put up 1,000 units.
Oh.
I've done development for 20 to 30 years, and I've never seen that happen in any subdivision in a fast-growing area.
Yeah. Here's how this works. So that everybody understands, you talk to our chair, she runs the meeting. So this isn't a
Right.
dialogue between the audience and everybody. Talk
I
to
was
our
just
chair.
looking at the
And you're being very respectful, so we appreciate that, but don't turn around and talk to the audience. Talk to our chair
Okay.
first.
Okay.
And we'll keep this civil, and you make your points, and we'll listen to your points. We understand and agree with that, but just, that's the procedure, okay?
Sorry about that.
Thank
I
you.
was just a
Thank you.
little
No,
stunned.
Thank you, you're right.
1,000 units, wow. That's all, thank you.
Finished? All right. Okay. Anybody else?
I have never had it put in perspective the way it was just now. That's outrageous. The equivalent population of this entire city in one, what you call a development, that's insane. That's just tearing apart this city and taking everything that's beautiful about it and giving it to a bunch of strangers who don't care about this city. This man may own this land, but you people have the right to decide the parameters in which the land is used and built. And you shouldn't just get as many people on it as possible because there's money to be made. I got nothing to gain from it, that's for darn sure. And nobody else in this town really does either. And if you want to talk about knowing about these meetings that you've had, I've only been into this over the summer because it started to become part of the community dialogue. And so I started to become a little curious about what I was hearing. But I was not hearing that the entire city of High Springs was going to fit inside this little place. That's outrageous, and I don't care if it takes 20 years to do it. The end result is outrageous and unacceptable. And the people of this town have a right to get together where they are received notice. I mean, real good notice, not just kind of like, oh, well, we kind of put it in the Chronicle. Well, we don't all sit and read the Chronicle. There's a way to make sure people get informed. And when you want to, you sure are able to do it. And it's time to do it when we have something to gain or lose. It's not just about the decisions you guys think is best for us. We're mature people capable of deciding that ourselves.
Vice Mayor? Ashley, the original proposal that came forward to our former city manager, didn't that have twice as many units plotted on it?
Yes, it had a substantial, I mean, they were 40-foot, 50-foot, and 60-foot wide lots, and there were a substantial number of units. Likewise, this isn't something where the developer just gets a free-for-all. We have the development agreement with stipulations way up and above what any other development has been required to do in the city, or I would go so far as to say the county. Likewise, if this is approved, there's more requirements that will be coming at plating. You know, there was someone that said that we don't have independent engineers look at things. We do. And our engineers have taken passes at this stage, and they will, and if it is approved at the other stages, they will take closer looks at everything as well as other professionals. We even had independent planners on the city side look at it. You know, this hasn't been something where the developer comes and it's whatever the developer wants and whatever the developer says. In fact, it's been quite the opposite.
May I speak again, please? Sorry, but you're not responding to the points that are being made by the people out here. The people are talking about the density, that the city of High Springs is going to be inside this little tiny piece of land. I don't care about the developers. I don't care about the engineers. I don't care about this and that, and all these little things that go into creating a neighborhood. But I do care about the way it's being handled and the way you are saying, oh, it's okay. The perspective is horrific.
The density is already there with the current rights that are vested in the property. That's my answer.
So you don't care what the people think?
I have to follow what state statute is and what our code is, and I have to follow the law, quite honestly, and the vested rights are already there.
Once again, I ask for clarification. R1 is how many units per
This,
acre?
yeah, this is gonna have to be the last one.
Okay. R1 is how many?
Do you want to start pulling up our code?
I can help. So R1 is not a density. It is a zoning, so it only tells you how big a parcel is. So for there are two land uses that are on there, future land uses, which is what tells you what your density is. So I will pull those both up and let you know what it is.
Okay. It says, from PD1 plan development and R1 residential to PD12 plan development.
Yeah, that's the zoning. So there are two items that go together. It is your future land use, which is the underlying, it's your land use and it tells you the density. And then your zoning is what tells you how big each of those parcels can be and the different uses that go.
What is the zoning for this area?
Zoning is PD currently.
Okay, and what's the density currently?
The density has to do with the future land use, which is what I'm pulling up. So if you can just bear with me one moment. I know that there's two of them on there and they're like a...
Christy, I have it on my presentation.
Oh, yeah.
Do you want me to go
Okay,
ahead?
how big was Tillman Acres?
Tillman Acres is I
The
don't have
ones that are built
There's
now?
800 units that are allowed by the density in Tillman Acres. There's also a plat on there that has already been filed called Tamiami Gardens that has 1,440
That was for
entitled
mobile
lots.
homes.
It wasn't for mobile homes. It was 1,440 lots for whatever one. Basically, the way the Tillman PD is read, you can put on there whatever you want. You can put single family, or you can put townhomes, I think is what's in the
But
PD.
it's a little tiny piece of this 600-plus acres, is that correct?
It's 1,440 homes in a very,
In a
very
little
small
tiny
piece,
area.
which, in my opinion, is better to have them spread out than in the little
Okay,
tiny
but
piece.
the plat that I saw showed that 1,440 in a little tiny area.
It's right there.
Not 680 acres.
It's right there, so it would be abutting the large acre lots in the existing Tillman with no buffer.
It's in, okay, did you find my answer?
It's loading. I'm having trouble with
So if you go to the
document.
next one, as far as the zoning, the next one is the zoning, which she keeps asking about. The proposed plan development,
I
like,
don't want proposed, I want what is right
right
now.
is right here. We have 800 units over the entire Tillman PD. Is what
800 units.
Plus the 1,440. You keep not wanting to hear that, but there's 1,440 lots on there as well.
So they could put townhomes, 1,440 residential-type townhomes
I
on
need-
on that one little piece, is that correct?
On the little piece, it would have to comply with the Tillman PD, which allows single-family homes and allows townhomes.
And it allows townhomes, right?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, that's on the western side of this whole acreage. And then the rest of it would be 800 homes, correct?
Or townhomes.
Or townhomes, and a golf course, that would be nice, on the rest of it, correct?
It would be, since some of the 800 homes is taken in that platted area, it'd be a little less than 800 for the remaining part of the property.
Okay, that's a lot better than 2,000.
It would be, when you combine it, it's, what was the count
But the
that you're,
1,440 is on one little area. It's one little density area. High
right,
density, one area,
yes.
maybe 20 or 30 acres.
As was it 28 acres? I'd have to go exactly and check what the acreage of those plots are.
Oh, off like the Tamiami
Tamiami
Gardens. I don't know
Gardens.
what exact it is, but each of the lots is 25 by 100.
Yeah.
But I have the density pulled up if you'd like that. So there are two densities that are on there. There's low density residential, LDR, and there's medium density residential, which is MDR, and that's low density is 4 dwelling units per gross acre, and medium is 6 dwelling units per gross acre. And so you would have to calculate each of those, add them together.
Okay. What is happening today, not what is happening yesterday or the day before, or might happen in the future,
Okay.
How many homes can be built today under the present zoning?
Your time's running out.
Thank you.
Okay. Shall we move forward, please?
I don't have the number with me. I think it's calculated a little over 2,000 is what it was. I don't want to. Okay, 2,240.
1,400 of those are on 20 acres.
All right, Commissioner,
Vice Mayor.
it's your pleasure. Yes, go ahead.
The comments were made just now that 1,440 homes would go on a tiny area. And earlier we heard that we don't want Newberry. We've got Newberry over there with homes 5 feet apart, is what I understand. I've seen these subdivisions. I know what you're talking about. So now you're talking about 1,440 homes like they have in Newberry. Is that correct?
That's what the zoning or
The planning, it's platted for that, yes.
but that was what, 1929?
Mr. Attorney?
It was platted in 1925, and the problem is that that plat has never been vacated. So a landowner that has platted lands, whether it's the entire plat or it's one lot in that plat or several lots in that plat, has rights, there's vested rights in that plat. And nowhere has the city been able to find where that plat has been vacated. So one of the problems that we have is this 1925 plat that is floating around. And I think there's been a lot of debate, some internal disagreement even, over what the development rights are. I have a legal argument to that. The developer has a legal argument to that. And it all is something that is a bit in legal question. And I think the worst thing for this city would be that this would devolve into some sort of a legal contest where the city's spending money, the developer's spending money, the citizens are spending money, and we spend a lot of money on litigation. So one of the things that our staff, our manager has negotiated is that this old plat is forevermore vacated. We don't have to worry about a 1925 plat. One of the things that we wish had happened back in 2005 when this was originally permitted is that that plat would have been vacated. We still don't see that in any of the city records that that old plat was vacated. So one of the arguments is, well, wait a minute, we have the 1,400 homes in Tamiami Trails that is our vested rights. We could develop that. We have the 800 homes, and as Angela just said, you know, we're looking at 2,200 homes overall in this area in some way, some shape or form. So the negotiation over the last year and a half has been, let's get rid of all of that. Let's start again, and let's try to get to some development that stands on its own. And either this development is better or not. And I think what your city staff has been saying for some time now is this stands alone. It's a better development than what we had in 1925, better than what we have in 2005, and we bring it forward. There's a number of amenities in the development agreement that are very, very different than what happened 20 years ago.
Mayor. Yeah. So my point, and I don't know if you really understand it yet, no matter what we do, there's going to be 1,400 to 2,000 something going in there anyway. I mean, we don't have a choice unless, as the attorney said, you want us to spend money in litigation to keep this from happening. And we're not talking $2,000 or $3,000 when you get into that kind of litigation. So that's what we as commissioners have to look at. as far as what's best for the city of High Springs. Not just, you don't want it, we understand that. It's there. And they can do with it what they want. And you have to look at it too. Property owners have a right to sell their property. Just because it's been there forever, because somebody wanted to have cattle or whatever, as people die, their children don't want to take it over, so it's sold, and people have a right to do that. So we have to look at it from all sides, not just you don't want it. We have to look at it for the best of the city. So that's what we're trying to do. And I just want to make sure you understand, it's already platted. It's not as if this is brand new, that nothing's going to happen if we don't pass it. Something will happen regardless. Thank you.
Okay.
Madam
Now,
Vice
Mr.
Mayor.
Attorney, once again, would you give us our options for tonight, please?
Madam Chair, at this point, the deliberations are engaged. You have to decide based upon substantial and competent evidence. The planners, the people that have testified have opinion-level testimony, and you make your decision to pass ordinance number 2022-18. You can pass it subject to further modification. You can continue it to a date certain in the future, or you could deny it. But in each one of those instances, it has to be based upon competent, substantial evidence, and you have to state a reason for why you're voting one way or another.
Very good.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, just wanted to clarify that for all. All right.
Madam
Commissioners.
Vice Mayor, may I? I hear you guys. We really do.
Yes, we do.
And I would just like to restate the data that I presented at the meeting 2 weeks ago. That is a culmination of the property sizes around this development. On the northwest corner, the average lot size is 2.81 acres. On the southwest corner, the average lot size that directly abuts the property is 4.67 acres. On the northeast side, the average lot size is 17.46 acres. And to the southeast, the average property size is 26.55 acres. And they are asking for an average of 0.17 acres. And it is not compatible with the surrounding area. I understand that they have vested property rights, and I understand that there's a 100-year-old plat. I understand all of that, and I understand that there is potential for litigation, and I understand that the developer has already indicated that they are willing to sue if we don't give them their way. But this PD in 2004, when Sonny Tillman did Phase 1, he wanted more density in Phase 1, and the town said, wow, that's really too dense. And Mr. Tillman backed off, and all of the properties here are 1 to 5 acres. On the rest of the PD that was approved, Mr. Tillman never talked about the 100-year-old plat. That's the PD that was approved. And I understand that they have rights, and I respect the amount of work that Mr. Potts has put in. I know he has, and I respect the fact that his realtor comes to every meeting to listen, so she knows what's going on. But if you look at this document that's in our packet, there's no page number. Section 3.4, single-family detached residential building and area requirements, paragraph G, side yard. The minimum depth of side yards shall be 5 feet on each side. The minimum distance between structures shall be 10 feet. A side yard adjacent to a street shall be 10 feet. I'm 5 feet tall. That's not much of a side yard. It's just not. I mean, from me to Christie, I could tell you, that's about how far it would be between my house and the next house. That's not why people come here. And I really would implore the developer to hear the people. We here are here for them. I understand we have to follow the rules, but there comes a time where you go to the mattresses for the town, and this is that time. I don't want us to fight a lawsuit. I don't want to pay a lawyer for stuff we don't have to do, but I don't want to sell the soul of this city. They want an average lot size that is 64 times smaller than the surrounding property. They have rights. They absolutely do. But not this way. And I would really, really like for them to come to the table and listen to the community, because they're who we are here for. Yes, they have to follow the rules. Yes, we have to follow the rules. But we need to be representing the 6,500 people that are here now. And, you know, I mean, this morning I was in my yard because I'm blessed to have a yard. I was watering my vegetable garden, and my dog was running like crazy in the backyard, and his ears were flapping in the breeze. And that joy was palpable. A dog can't run in a 5-foot side yard. Kids can't play in a 5-foot side yard. We need space. This is who High Springs is, and we owe it to the people here. Thank you.
I would just like to clarify what's in the current Tillman PD. There is no setbacks. There are no setback requirements in the current Tillman PD. There is no minimum home size. So on the existing 1,440 lots, they can put tiny homes, or they can put homes right up to the property line. There's no design standards. There's nothing that's in the current development agreement or current PD. So I just want you to know the alternative that could come. Likewise, it's not just what's there, but it's what could be there. The zoning to the north does allow 7,500 square feet lots, as well as some 4,500 square foot lots. It is not as large lots as the R1 surrounding it on the east, west, and south, but from technical planning standards, it is compatible to extend the zoning to the north down. So from a technical standpoint, we have to look at it in a quasi-judicial hearing according to the property rights on the site, according to existing code and state statute. And so staff's recommendation is approval based on how we've been trained that things are supposed to be interpreted.
Okay. All of our comments. Okay. What's your pleasure?
I make a motion, and I've heard what everybody has said, but I've talked with the attorney, and a lot of things aren't subject to interpretation. You know, compatible is a standard. There are definitions of compatibility, and like Ashley just referred to, and she's sitting in the role of the planner, and it's a quasi-judicial process. We have to listen to the competent testimony and not opinion. And it's, you know, I want to hold the developer to their feet. I think they've shown a lot of goodwill in revising this plan, and therefore, I think it's in the best interest of the city long-term, and it will change us. I understand that, but I make a motion, we approve 2022-18.
I second.
Okay. It has been properly moved and second that ordinance 2022-18 be approved. Roll call, please.
Commissioner Ambrose?
Yes.
Commissioner Jones?
Yes.
Commissioner White?
No.
Vice Mayor James?
Yes. All right, motion carries 3-1. All right, at this time, we will have citizens' requests and comments for issues that are not on the agenda. Please state your name for the record and limit your comments to 5 minutes, please.
Hi, I'm Angela Knutson. You guys probably recall me from previous meetings. Catherine Wise, thank you. Thank you for standing up for what the citizens of the city want and need, and I appreciate that about you. I haven't seen that in anyone else at any of the meetings, and tonight, and I want you to reach back and pat yourselves on the back because you just sold out our city. And Linda, it's your last term.
She gone.
David Lynch, L-I-N-C-H. I have a piece of paper I'd like to give a copy of to each person all the way around.
Thank you.
Give one to her. So this is, the jury gave Nicholas Cruz life in prison because he has fetal alcohol spectrum disorder. In other words, they're saying he's not responsible for killing 17 people. It's the alcoholic beverages that caused him to kill 17 people. I urge the commissioners to think about this. And when they allow High Springs Brewing to use the High Springs name, and the fact that Nicholas Cruz killed 17 people because of alcoholic beverages.
Thank you. Any other comments? It has to be something that's not on the agenda.
Not on the agenda.
Okay.
There's a new development. I just want to make the commission aware of this before this goes any further. On 142nd, I do not know what it's called, but they were talking about an equine community, and they were having 1 acre homes. You cannot have a horse on less than 1 acre. So if you have a 1 acre piece and you put a house and a garage and a driveway and, I don't know, a small barn, that's less than 1 acre. Horses have approximately 9,000 pounds of manure every year. I know, I have horses. Believe me, they poop. I would suggest that you do a minimum lot size of 1.5 acres for an equine community. That allows a house, garage, driveways and barns and trailer, whatever, to be put on half of an acre and allow the 1 horse on 1 acre. Right now, I believe that the city of High Springs requires 1 acre per horse. But I don't find in any of the documents that the 1 acre includes the house or does not include the concrete. But I see this new development going in and they're talking about an equine development. I think that's wonderful. I'd love to see that. But if you've ever seen what happens with a horse on 1 acre, 1 horse on 1 acre, that acre is dirt in 6 months.
Okay.
There's no grass.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. No one else?
I want to address a meeting that took place on October 13th. I did not attend this meeting, but I do sit and watch the videos when I have a chance. And the events that took place during the course of this meeting on the 13th, I believe need to be addressed. If I recall, there was, during the summer sometime, y'all voted 5-0 on something. And I believe it had something to do with the murals. And so you all approved it, and it was summer. It was a while ago. And then it came to, on the 13th, you were going to take that vote and that ordinance, and you were going to present it to the planning board, or maybe not. I may have it all mixed up. But before it went to the planning board, Mr. Walker, you took that back to your house or your office, and you made several changes on that ordinance. You didn't contact anybody up here, including our mayor. You just made these changes on your own accord because you decided that you could because you're the attorney. During the summer, you did not use the term that you used during that meeting, which was that it was constitutionally wrong or wouldn't pass constitutional muster, whatever that is. At any rate, all of a sudden, the summer's gone, this has been voted on, and now it comes to be presented to the planning board, and we find out that the planning board received an ordinance that was not what was voted on. These people voted on that ordinance. I don't know who you work for, and I don't know, do you work for these people, the commission? Or are you part of the commission? Who hired you, Mr. Walker?
Miss, direct your points to here, please.
Okay. Who hired him?
The
Ma'am?
city,
And who is the city?
High Springs.
Okay, I know High Springs is the city, but there's got to be a people.
No, we do it as a panel, not as an individual.
Okay, a people. Are you all this representing the city? Is that what you consider yourself, city representatives? Okay, so he's working for you then, is that correct?
Yes, he works for the city, yes.
Okay, so he's working for you. So if I were to ever take a contract that my boss wrote up and I didn't like it, but that's not my job to like it or not. My job is to be the messenger and get it to where he asked me to bring it, because that's what he pays me to do. And if I, in the middle of this, played around with this and redacted it, or maybe I took it home and made it look official and changed it, and then presented it to this person without letting anybody know, just doing it, I would lose my job. I'd be on my butt out in the front. And I'm telling you right now, this attorney did this. He changed this ordinance. And then that day, he decided to inform you all that it was constitutionally illegal or controversial or something. Nobody cited anywhere in the Constitution where this was. Nobody gave any kind of indication that it was actually in there. It was just words that said, this is constitutionally illegal, or it's not going to pass constitutional muster. And I'm telling you, he should have said that over the summer and all the months that you had, and he should have said that before the vote took place, when y'all five were voting for it. He knew what the ordinance was, and he didn't say a word. But when it came to that meeting and it was realized that it had been changed and it was addressed, all of a sudden, you had a re-vote on something that had already been voted on and passed. And it had to do with, instead of approving 100 murals at the same time, the language removed, among other things, was that the murals be approved as they come in, one at a time, give them special attention, and be discreet. And that language was taken out. And now people can come in from all over and do whatever they want to the walls of our building. And I'll tell you, the mural that's on that, with that lady with the goggles there, is ridiculous. That's a terrible mural. And if this is what you're going to do, is change votes and change language just because you think you should or because you want to, then what else is going to get voted on by you guys that Mr. Walker's not going to go home and change because he thinks that it should be changed after all? I don't think that's right. And if I did it, I'd be out on the street.
Anybody else?
My name's Janet Evans. I kind of want to speak to the same topic that the woman who just left did. I wrote a letter to all of the commissioners. I asked our city clerk to read it because I knew I wouldn't have time in my 5 minutes to read it. I read it aloud partially at the last meeting that we had. I'd like to continue to read it, but before I do, I'd like to, here I could do this. I'd like to address what my fellow resident just said, and that is Mr. Walker continues to have behaviors with our city issues directed, as he was directed by a 5-0 vote to put specific verbiage for the planning board regarding the mural ordinance. He chose not to put it in and acted, this is grounds for censure, where a formal process should be undertaken and followed to reprimand him publicly. He's not doing his duties as discharged. And I'd like to continue with this letter because I think this letter talks about a number of things where these are questionable acts surrounding Mr. Walker. Another part of the letter says, during the ensuing discussion on the 8th, we had to listen to Mr. Walker explain about all of the excellent new people coming on board at his firm, and he even suggested that an attorney who was out of state might participate in meetings via Zoom. Does the city have adequate representation? Mr. Walker insisted that he could use the constructive criticism made in that meeting to make changes in his performance of providing legal advice to the city. Now you got to remember, this letter sent to the commissioners was written a couple of months ago. After much discussion, including whether to add additional opportunity for the city to consult with another firm when specific areas of strengths were needed, Mr. Walker said that he, in fact, would have the final say over whether additional help was even warranted. The committee finally agreed to refer to the city's existing contract with Mr. Walker and or his firm. And it's my understanding that the decision was made to renew his contract, although it can be terminated at any point that our commissioners who are representing the people, anytime that the commissioners decide to make that decision. In closing, I would ask that the city commissioners file for new representation for our city and then subsequently terminate the contract with Mr. Walker and his firm.
Thank you. Anybody else? Okay, thank you for your comments. Commissioner's response.
The only thing I'm going to say is, when we hire the city attorney is a charter officer, and they have a legal responsibility to use their legal expertise to protect the city and provide good counsel and advice. That's part of the checks and balances when you have a citizen-led government, is that you have somebody that speaks for the city from a legal perspective. And at no point do I ever want him to not speak, and the city attorney to speak from a legal perspective and what they would feel comfortable going to court with, despite what our direction might be if they think it's going to directly lead to a challenge. So that's the role of the city attorney. And I just, the personal attacks across the way, there's a lot that goes into this. So I'm going to leave it at that. But they are a charter officer and not an employee that simply we direct what to do.
Hold it a second. You done? You done, Ross?
Yes.
Okay.
Oh, yes, he turned his light off, so.
Oh, I couldn't, I didn't know.
I'm sorry, I did ask you, I apologize.
Yeah, you did, you
Okay.
did, you did. But I wanted to make sure you was done. Go ahead.
Mr. Ambrose, Commissioner Ambrose and I disagree on this, and a lot of you have heard conversations regarding this issue. I believe the citizens have a right to their opinion. I believe that attorneys have different opinions. I believe that just because, as the previous person said, that he removed some verbiage from the mural contract that was not even brought to our attention. It was noticed by the person who had asked for it specifically. So, yes, the attorney is supposed to be here to keep us out of litigation and to follow the statutes. But I do think that there are other avenues and other opinions, and that as a charter officer, he works for the commission. Just as all, we have the city manager as a charter officer, the city clerk is a charter officer, as well as the city attorney. So they work for the commission. So just so that you know, they are not an employee per se of the city of High Springs. They are our employee as the commission. Thank you.
Madam Vice Mayor, may I, one point of clarification. Ms. Travis is gone, right, but the, actually, the subdivision that's on 142nd, are those not 5-acre lots that has it's off the Chip and Seal Road? I thought those were 5 acres.
I'm going to defer to Christy again on that.
I can answer that one. So it is 1 dwelling unit per 5 gross acres. So they do have lots. The smallest lot is 2 acres, but
Oh, is that right?
gross,
Okay.
it is, 5
Okay.
acres.
Yeah, I thought it was bigger than 1, and I was
Yes.
hoping to answer her question, but, okay, thank you.
Okay, we ready for our new business? Item number 1.
Madam Chair, this is ordinance number 2022-08, an ordinance of the City of High Springs, Florida, providing for the vacating of a portion of the public right-of-way, being a portion of Northwest Fifth Avenue, also known as 189th Avenue, recorded in Section 34, Township 7 South, Range 17 East, Alachua County, Florida, repealing all ordinances in conflict, providing an effective date. The appropriate motion is to pass ordinance number 2022-08 as read by title only.
Commissioner?
You want me to go ahead?
Yes.
Okay. All right, so number 1 and 3 kind of go together a little. They're separate ordinances. So these road closures are for different reasons, and staff is recommending approval. Number 1, the one that's on a portion of 189th Avenue, which is the green to the north, that would be deeded to the adjoining property owner who wants to expand his medical office. The orange road is, the city has a retention pond that we've been maintaining. So it's really never going to be a road. So that's why we're recommending approval of that one. And so these ordinances will allow us to take care of the first issue and clean up the second. If you want, I'll just go to the next one as well. There are 3 different items, but I'll just explain the next one. The next one is in Underwood Hill subdivision. And that would go to each adjoining property owner half and half. And then the HOA wants to build a well for, so that there's water for fires, if there's any fires or anything. And it's not likely to ever be a road due to the conditions on the adjoining property. So staff is recommending approval of that one.
Okay. Comments, commissioners?
Yeah, and, I mean, since we're talking all three items, 1 and 3 are simply closing the road.
Right.
And then 2 includes vacating it, where it would no longer be our property.
Right, well, one would no longer be our property either, it'd go to the the doctor's office.
Okay.
So the only one that would belong to us was number 2.
Up in Underwood Hill.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, oh, wait, let me take that back. I'm sorry, I'm reading it wrong. Number 3, yes.
Oh, okay.
Right.
All right, any comments from the audience? Okay, I'll entertain a motion.
Underwood Hill is beautiful. Having driven around all these areas, I'd certainly make a motion that we pass these ordinances closing. Can we do all 3 at once, or should we do them individually, Mr. Walker? One at a time. Okay, then I will make a motion that we pass ordinance 2022-08 as read.
Second.
Okay, it has been properly moved and second that ordinance 2022-08 be approved. Roll call.
Jones?
Yes.
Commissioner White?
Yes.
Vice Mayor James?
Yes.
Commissioner Ambrose?
Yes.
All right, motion carries 4-0.
Madam Chair, the next item is ordinance number 2022-12, an ordinance of the City of High Springs, Florida, providing for the vacating and abandoning of certain platted undeveloped public right-of-ways in Underwood Hill Forest between lots 12 and 13 within the city limits, City of High Springs, Florida, repealing all ordinances in conflict and providing an effective date. The appropriate motion is to pass ordinance number 2022-12 upon its reading by title only.
Thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
Commissioner comments? Audience comments? Okay, I'll entertain a motion.
I'll make a motion that we pass ordinance 2022-12 as read, please.
I'll second it.
Okay, it has been properly moved and second that ordinance 2022-12 be approved. Roll call.
Commissioner White?
Yes.
Vice Mayor James?
Yes.
Commissioner Ambrose?
Yes.
Commissioner Jones?
Yes.
Motion carries 4-0.
Madam Chair, the next item is ordinance number 2022-21. This is an ordinance of the City of High Springs, Florida, providing for the vacating of a portion of public right-of-way being a portion of Northwest 2nd Street, also known as Northwest 238th Street, recorded in Section 34, Township 7 South, Range 17 East, Alachua County, Florida, repealing all ordinances in conflict, providing an effective date. The appropriate motion is to pass ordinance number 2022-21 upon its reading by title only.
Thank you.
Ma'am.
Discussion, comments, commissioners? Anyone from the audience? Okay, motion.
I'll go 3 for 3, and I'll make a motion that we pass ordinance 2022-21 as read.
I second that.
It's been properly moved and second that ordinance 2022-21 be approved. Okay?
Vice Mayor James?
Yes?
Commissioner Ambrose?
Yes.
Commissioner Jones?
Yes.
Commissioner White?
Yes.
Motion carries 4-0. Next item is item number 4. Discuss, consider, and act on mutual benefit and use agreement.
Madam Chair, the appropriate motion will be for the city to enter into the mutual benefit and use agreement between Ashbrit, Inc. and the City of High Springs for the removal of storm debris within the City of High Springs as a result of a storm or man-made event.
Commission, this is piggybacking on the county's agreement for storm debris removal. Obviously, the county went through a fair, equitable, good process, and they went with the lowest bidder, and staff is pleased with what they chose and think it would be good for us as well. Likewise, we do not, with our current waste management company, we do not have reliable service for removal of storm debris. Had the recent hurricane that came through provided significantly more damage, it probably would have been much longer having to depend on our current waste management service and so it's important to have something like this in place.
Thank you. Commissioners?
Can I ask a question? Is that something that we would pay Waste Management something extra for if the need arose?
So Waste Management isn't our current provider, but
Right.
we likely would, but they, I even talked to them, before the hurricane was coming, because in other cities I've worked, they will actually start, before the storm, start picking things up so that it won't fly around and stuff. It was like crickets.
Wow.
I couldn't even get them to commit to letting us know if or when they were going to pick up trash so I could notify the citizens in a timely manner.
So contractually speaking, this would be a standalone
Yes.
regardless? Understood.
Yes,
Thank you.
and more reliable service.
Okay.
Any audience comments? Okay.
I'll make a motion, we approve the mutual benefit agreement with Ashbrook.
Second.
Okay. It has been properly moved and second that this mutual agreement be approved. All right. Item number 5.
Yeah, we need to vote on it.
We have first motion and second, but we got to vote.
It's been a long night.
It's been a long night. All right. All those in favor with approving this agreement, respond with aye, please.
Aye.
Those opposed, respond same sign. Now motion carries 4-0.
Madam Chair, the next item on the agenda is, it's a mutual aid agreement with relation to your water, wastewater utility. And if any signatory to the agreement is damaged either in a man-made or a natural emergency, then the other signatories to the agreement can lend aid to our utility plan. So again, this is a mutual aid. The appropriate motion is to authorize appropriate officials to enter into the mutual aid agreement for water and wastewater purposes.
I just want to explain what TRIO is. This is a Training, Research, Educational, Environmental Occupation Center out of the University of Florida. So, good organization to do work with. And they would provide emergency assistance as far as personnel, equipment, and materials, should we need it, and if anything were to happen to our water and wastewater plant during an emergency.
Good. Comment, commissioners?
No.
Audience comments?
I think it's awesome that y'all are going to enter into agreement both with, under new business, I'm Brad Riddle, at 19968 Northwest 215th Terrace, High Springs. Anyway, I think this is great that y'all are doing this for the residents of High Springs. As a retired GRU employee, I used to have to respond within the state of Florida, Louisiana, Alabama, Mississippi, and it's awesome to have this in place to help out your employees and get your services back up and running in a timely manner.
Thank you. No one else? All right, commissioners.
I move that we approve the mutual aid agreement with the TRIO Center.
Second.
Okay, it's been properly moved and second that we approve this agreement. All those in favor, respond by saying aye, please.
Aye.
Those opposed, same sign, please. Motion carries 4-0. City Attorney report and update.
Nothing to report, Madam Chair.
All right, very good. City Manager?
So the 90 days is about to run out for the notification requirement for the impact fees for parks, roads, and general facilities that encompasses police, fire, and city facilities. So we need to do two public meetings prior to, two workshop meetings prior to adoption by state statute. So staff is requesting that we hold those prior to the two commission meetings in November at 5:30. So I just want to make sure y'all are okay with that, and if so, we will schedule the meetings to begin at 5:30 with the workshop followed by the regular commission meeting at 6:30. We also, just to let you know, in the water and sewer impact fees, I have a call set up with Danielle, and we'll also reach out to the planning commission as well. We kind of double duty it to make sure that we're following all the proper processes and procedures so we adopt things correctly. Water and sewer is a little different from parks, roads, and general facilities. The other thing is I'm going out of town this weekend to Maryland, and Bruce usually would be, standing in my place, but he's helping out with the recovery efforts. So Jenny will be acting city manager Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. I'm always available by phone, but I think Jenny's smarter than me in a lot of things. So that's all I have.
Ashley, this means you were talking about they're prior to already scheduled meetings.
Yeah, so they're at 5:30, like, we have CRA at 5:30, so the two in November would be at 5:30, but instead of CRA, they'll be the impact fee workshops.
Very good. Yes. That's it?
Yes.
Oh,
I can
that's
think of
all?
stuff. You know I like to talk.
I'll be quick because I'm missing a Newberry High School football game right now.
Okay.
There was a regional Bands of America competition on Saturday in Orlando, and Alachua County was very well represented. Buchholz High School, Gainesville High School, PK Young, and Newberry High School, and they were amazing. And if anybody wants to see local marching bands this Saturday, they're going to all be up at Santa Fe doing their marching performance assessment, and those kids were incredible. Thank you.
The only question I have is, are we making any progress on a codes enforcement officer? I've noticed, there's a lot of brush laying around town, that stuff's going through in different piles and this and that, and a lot of other issues. So we're missing our codes enforcement officer, and I'm just wondering.
So David Sutton is the new code compliance officer, and he has business cards, and he's been fixing all the forms, and he's gotten door tags and stuff because he had to change everything because it said police and now it says him. He started talking to people about some voluntary compliance. Obviously we like to talk to them and give them the 10 days or more. So he's in training this week. I'll have to see how he did his test for his first certification. And so I'm meeting with him weekly. So, and we'll be providing reports to y'all on not just homes, but there's also some commercial properties in our status. We're going to be keeping a running kind of tab, so at any time you want to see what's going on, we'll be keeping everything in writing, so whenever you want to know, we'll have something to provide for you.
Thank you.
I have nothing.
Okay, I have one thing I'm going to say, but it's way down the road. I went to an MTPO meeting on Tuesday, and they had a gentleman come in, a Mr. Fitzgerald, from the transportation office out of Tallahassee. And after quite a bit of discussion among themselves, because as you know, I'm just a figure, it seems as if they're going to start reinstating transportation by rail. There's some preliminary things, of course, that's going to have to be done ahead of time before they can do anything at all. But they did agree to go out and do a study to determine if rail would survive in our area. So they're going to start working on that. But once they get this whole thing moving, it's gonna start in Miami. So before it gets to us, it's years down the road. But they did decide to, let's move off and start doing with that. And I thought that was good to hear. So that's all I have to say. So if we want to adjourn, I'll entertain a motion.
Motion to adjourn.
Ms. Cathy talked about a fabulous band. I want to talk about a fabulous band. Look at Good Morning America Saturday, because FAMU will be
Yes.
there.
Saturday morning on Good Morning America, that's right. All right. Meeting adjourned.
Jenny, will you not lock me out? I left my things in my car. Okay.
Turn it off, Gloria.
You ran a good meeting. Thank you. Thank you, Ryan. Good meeting.
Well, I don't know. I know I did some of those people talk more than one time.
No, it's okay. I'm sorry for like
realize that.
I was not myself
And
today.
I also know when we got to citizens comment, that wasn't the right thing for her to say either,
You're
but.
fine. You can't control what they say or do.
Yeah, but
I just think
I
I got a
do.
little snippy because I'm just tired. It's like the fourth meeting. People have been on me.
Yeah,
and I'm
the
just like
same stuff
done.
over and over and over.
I'm done. Like, I'm like,
All right, give me a Snicker bar.
yeah.
Too
You want a
late for
Snicker
dinner.
bar?
Yeah.
I've been sitting there eating. I have a wedding to go to this weekend. I have to dress up. I'm like, there's gonna be zits all over my face. I've been eating.
Good to see you, Mr. Wilson. All right. Thank you for that. All right. This guy actually is gonna start teaching me. That's my house. Okay. That's the right copy. Come on. It's Yvonne. You know better than that.